cooperation and everything that you've lent to our endeavor.
Thank you very much.
I will echo the chief's sentiments about the governor and his support for law enforcement and doing what he can for the good of our communities in this state. In Ector County, we had multiple seizures of fentanyl in different incidents in the past. We've had overdoses. A lot of people may not be aware, but it takes a very minute amount of fentanyl to kill a person. And when these cartels are lacing marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin with this stuff, and then producing pills, some of which look this is very dangerous to our people, to our children, in our communities, in the state. We need to move forward with the governor's blessings. We are going to get to put an emphasis on this type of activity that these cartels and gangs are terrorizing our young people with, and we appreciate him coming to town. He's been here multiple times speaking on law enforcement issues, and we are always glad to speak with him. And I will tell you what we need is good prosecution, good, long, healthy prison sentences, and make these people know we're not going to let this be a light situation if they get caught. They're going to go to jail for a long, long time, and hopefully the fear of the consequences will set in with these individuals and keep them out of our communities.
Thank you. Director? Governor, thank you. Obviously, we had an opportunity to visit with our law enforcement professionals here before, and one of the things that we discussed was not just in terms of the impact of organized crime in West Texas and the state of Texas and the nation, the fact that the Mexican cartels are the most significant organized crime threat we've ever seen. And for years, they've been flooding our streets with cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine, particularly methamphetamine, and pure methamphetamine at a very high potency level. But now they've stooped to the point where they've engaged in counterfeit pills, and they've taken over the fentanyl market. And as these law enforcement professionals have articulated to you, is it makes a big difference, because these are kill pills, as you know well. And you've been on this issue for some time, and I know this is something just we spoke on many occasions, and how we can be more proactive in terms of being able to do something with this particular threat. But as we know it right now, these cartels are working and collaborating with gangs that are responsible for a disproportionate amount of violence in the communities, including West Texas. And certainly the law enforcement leaders here have been proactive in coming together. Anything the Department of Public Safety can, you've directed that we're going to do to be able to support them in this mission, we will continue to do so. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I especially want to thank all of the law enforcement officials who join with us here today. And I thank them and their teams for what they do every day to keep their community safe. One issue that was discussed in our meeting before you all came in is an increase in the amount of gang activity in general in the area, but also the amount of gang activity that is related to the distribution of fentanyl in the area. And so we all have a collective commitment to crack down on those gangs and their gang activity, as well as to crack down on their distribution of fentanyl here in this area, as well as across the entire state of Texas. It has become clear that fentanyl is killing Texans without or with substance abuse problems. Unfortunately, most who die from fentanyl didn't even know that they were taking it. They were poisoned unwittingly by a counterfeit pill that appeared to be some type of real medication. Most fentanyl in Texas is made by Mexican drug cartels who add fentanyl onto other drugs. Many of the pills look like real painkillers or stimulants or anti-anxiety drugs. But even worse is what is called rainbow fentanyl. It's made to look like candy so that young children will take it. The DEA administrator said, and I'm going to quote, "Fentanyl is the single deadliest drug threat our nation has ever encountered." Continuing the quote, "Fentanyl is everywhere, from large metropolitan areas to rural America. No community is safe from this poison. This past weekend, the Wichita Falls Police Department reported that 3 people died over the weekend from what is believed to be fentanyl-related overdoses. The youngest victim was 13 years old. They said the biggest concern with these overdose deaths is that these pills are made to look like common prescription drugs. And then it was reported in our meeting here today that the Midland Hospital has, on average, 1 fentanyl overdose every single day. And according to the CDC, during just the 1-year time period from February of last year to February of this year, more than 75,000 Americans died from fentanyl-related overdoses. It's just getting worse. Right now, the leading cause of death in the United States of America for those between 18 and 45 is not cancer, it's not COVID, it's not guns, it's nothing other than fentanyl overdose deaths. And I wanted to applaud Director McCraw and all Texas law enforcement, because Texas law enforcement alone has, over the past year, seized enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire country. Well, fentanyl is a clandestine killer, and Texans are victimized by Mexican cartels that produce and import it. So cartels are terrorists, and it's time that we started treating them that way. So today I have issued this executive order designating cartels as terrorists in Texas and directing the Texas Department of Public Safety to take immediate action to, among other things, identify gangs that are supporting Mexican cartels and work to seize assets as well as disrupt cartel networks. I've also directed Texas agencies to alert the public about the fentanyl crisis, including schools and workplaces through mediums like social media and public service announcements, to make clear that truly one pill can kill. And then today I also sent this letter to President Biden as well as Vice President Harris, demanding that they classify Mexican drug cartels operating in Texas as terrorist organizations. These Mexican cartels are violent, deadly threats to every Texan and every American. Fentanyl is a scourge where with just one pill kills. To save our country, we are escalating our efforts to get these gangs as well as these drugs off our streets. Today's announcements also follow things I've already announced before, and that is we will be working this next session to reclassify fentanyl overdoses as fentanyl poisoning. We will be looking to elevate to murder the charge of anyone who knowingly provides fentanyl to someone who loses their life because of it. We're taking this fentanyl problem seriously, and we want to stop it in the state of Texas. We'll take a few questions.
Are you finding the distributors of fentanyl, obviously there are users who are having overdoses. Are we tracking the people who are actually getting it on the street? Are we making arrests on that front?
So we are making arrests on that front. I do want to let you know this, because this is information I learned in the meeting that we're in right now. The percentage of those who are the providers of it are teenagers in schools who are knowingly providing fentanyl-laced pills. And so it's gone from cartels to sophisticated gangs to more loosely connected individuals who may be profiteering off of it themselves. And so those who are spreading fentanyl are growing in number and getting lower in age.
How have you seen the relationship between the border prices in relation to the fentanyl issue? Have you seen like both kind of getting upset and they're kind of working together almost?
Is directly related. So fentanyl, the subcomponents of fentanyl are almost always made in China. And then they are exported to Mexico. And it's the cartels in Mexico that then combine those elements and lace them onto pills, and then export those into Texas and into the United States.
I'm assuming you guys obviously have worked to try to solve this. It's kind of like a hidden weapon at this point. What kind of solutions are you guys working on? Are you confident in those?
So what we have been doing is through Operation Lone Star and with the Texas Department of Public Safety, as well as with local officials, we've been seizing large amounts of fentanyl. You can tell them the number of doses that you were telling me about earlier. But yeah, why don't you go ahead?
On one just daily routine patrol operation, we seized over 10,000 pills, and that was in a routine call for service. So you can imagine how exponentially larger those seizures are when we expand into our narcotics trafficking units and investigative efforts in collaboration with other units.
So think about this. In that one seizure that he was talking about, by seizing that, that may have saved 10,000 lives. But in addition to that, with the DPS and everybody else working in collaboration with Operation Lone Star, we have seized more pills and material that would be enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States. But because the proliferation has grown so much, we have to move beyond just the seizure of it. We need to get to those who are the source providers of it and to the distributors of it here in Texas. And we want to go after them as well as their assets. We want to disrupt their supply chains, and we want to do everything that we can to put them out of business.
Why do you think the cartels have embraced the drug? It kills their customers.
It's a good question. I mean, there's two aspects to it. One is that fentanyl can be very addictive if used in a way that does not kill a person, and it goes for a higher price. But listen, the truth of the matter is the cartels could care less whether or not the people or the drugs they're trafficking kill people. Remember this fact. Either everyone or almost everyone who crosses the border does so with the assistance and after paying money to the cartels. Many of those people die during that process, and they could care less whether or not those people die because they know people will just keep coming. And the same thing goes with fentanyl. They could care less whether or not they're killing off the population. But here's a point that we all must come to grips with. America needs to awaken to the reality. There is enough fentanyl on our streets right now where all Americans can lose their lives to a drug that is completely invisible to them. This is extraordinarily dangerous and could be a weapon of mass destruction imposed by Mexican drug cartels.
One more question? When you met with the Mexican governors back in the spring, did this issue come up? Did you talk to them about getting some sort of help on that side of the border?
You know, at that time, actually, our conversation focused on their efforts to secure their side of the border, to employ many of the same techniques that we were using, and we actually even shared materials with them to better secure the border for the purpose of reducing illegal immigration across the border. It was mostly focused on the illegal movement of people across the border, less so about the drugs.
Last question?
All right, well, listen, thank you all very much, but most importantly, I want to thank the law enforcement here today for everything you all do.